Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by uppercutchops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all natural, dry-aged, USDA prime Angus and Wagyu steaks and chops. Not to be confused with Wagyu. No, folks, it's Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course, the king of all, those gigantic cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had. Probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at uppercutchops.com. That's uppercutchops.com. Or give them a call, find out what's for dinner. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for uppercutchops.com. All right, welcome in everybody listening in on our CBS NBC and Fox Sports affiliates and independents from coast to coast. Everybody watching on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, Wild, Charter, CBS, NBC Digital, and independent affiliates in select markets. Thanks for joining us there, as well as our friends on Hotel TV where applicable. And of course, everybody on Pick Your Favorite Streamer, Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, iHeart, Stitcher, Deezer, plus a whole bunch of others, and Libsyn too. And on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Thanks for joining us there. The group just keeps growing and growing. It's the only group that I know of on social media that is advertised, or I should say discussed even, right here on regular terrestrial radio and linear television as well. Of course, a nice round of applause for Chicago Food Favorites. That's good stuff, folks. And oh, by the way, I'm the administrator, so don't spam the group. You can join it, talk about your favorite foods, restaurants, recipes, make some friends, have some fun, but just don't spam the group because I'll kick your ass off faster than you could say scrumdiddlyumptious, if you know what I mean. That's right. If you know what that is, that's from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. All right. How many times have we rooted for not the bad guy, but the bad players? The bad players on teams. It's real easy to root for a favorite, pick a favorite. Well, I think Joe or Josephine, these are the best players on the team, so we're going to go ahead and jump on their bandwagon. But what about the bad players? And let's face it, over the last couple of decades or so, I've noticed a trend in finding intriguing patterns of fans building up that cult personality around players on their favorite team who are just, well, frankly, average at best. And think about this. Before we dwell just a little bit too much on the idea of bad major leaguers, right? Let's think about baseball here for a moment. Look, it's worth noting that even the so-called bad players are still elite. Look, these are the best players in the world, folks. If you think for some crazy reason that the bad player on a big league team is a bad player, I would love to see you get up there and outperform them. And I can tell you, I've been in this rodeo, and even the bad players are good. You take them out of that environment, and they are still the best players, some of the best players in the world. That's how that one works. So, I mean, look, going through the minor league system and bopping your way through there just to get to the bigs is hard enough in the first place. Now, to stay there it's hard, but it's easier to get yourself out of the bigs. So the hardest thing about getting to the bigs is actually once you get in there is to stay there. Think about that one. Another discussion for yet another time. But look, some of those players that you may think that are average at best, or maybe they're the bad players, they may not stack up or compare to those all-stars and their teammates and Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers, whatever. But look, what I want to get across is these players, again, are still among the best in the world at what they do. Think about this. Let's say you're a backup shortstop on the New York Yankees, right? And let's face it, their shortstop right now isn't very good anyway. But let's say you're the backup shortstop. Well, technically, if you take the other 29 teams, so let's just say there's 30 teams, and let's say there's 30 backups. Let's say you're one of the backups. Well, you're still one of the 60 best players in the world at that position, and you're a backup. That's a heavy dose of reality right there. So just keep that in mind. And look, there are players that fall into that utility or bench role like I'm talking about, but look, maybe they just don't sell a lot of jerseys and they don't get a lot of playing time. It doesn't mean that they're bad. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them. Just remember those players who interest me, in my opinion, of course, because for some reason I like them because for a while I was one of those before I got into a starting rotation. I was in the middle of, let's put it this way, I was at the bottom of the starting rotation, then I worked my way up to the top of the starting rotation as a 1 or a 2. And so it's very, very difficult. In case you're keeping score, it's tough. Take a guy by the name of, here's just a random thing. We'll take a guy by the name of Don Kelly, utility player for the Tigers. Right, he hadn't appeared on the field much since, 2014. We're going in the way back time machine, slashing 230, 294, 334 over 9 seasons. Not very good. A career mediocre player. Basically, his WAR is just about at 0, so wins above replacement. Essentially, he is replaceable, but yet he is the next best alternative when you need a player. But think about the idea that the Tiger fans would argue that Don Kelly is the real Donnie Baseball, not, believe it or not Don Mattingly. Imagine that one. Because Donnie Baseball, everybody knows Donnie Baseball is Don Mattingly, except the Tiger fans, I'm going to say. And so, look, there are really 2 parts of what makes certain players fan favorites. First thing is, well, the things that make a bad player beloved is a positive feeling that they create for the audience. I remember this. I used to have Seattle Supersonics tickets way back in the early 90s. And there was, of course, that was a great team with Kemp and Gary Payton and Nate McMillan and all those guys, Sam Perkins. And there was a guy that a lot of the fans would dress up. They sat in the nosebleed seats and they would wear chef outfits, right? Like a cook, right? So there's all these guys. They would go crazy when Steve Scheffler would come into the game, right? But Chef was a favorite amongst the fans. He was the guy that didn't get a lot of playing time. I mean, he was effective when he was in there, but people liked Chef. Maybe it was because of the name. I don't know. I just remember seeing nothing but Chef hats across the top of the stadium at the Seattle Center Coliseum way, way, way back in the day. It was a half a block or so away from the Space Needle. That's where it was in Lower Queen Anne in Seattle. And for all of our listeners up there, you know exactly where I'm talking about. But those guys like Steve Scheffler, he was a beloved player by the fans just for being Steve Scheffler, and he didn't get a lot of playing time, but it was fun for him to get out there because the crowd went wild. He was just one of those guys. Think back to that movie Rudy. The crowd went berserk when Dan Rudiger got into the game in the last 2 plays of the game against Georgia Tech in that famous movie, Rudy. And so it's the same idea. The fans love a great story. Look, the feelings these players do, they kind of inspire us. They give us hope that the little guy or the not super popular guy or woman is going to get in there. And it's the old who amongst us has seen a gif of Tampa Bay Rays outfielder Brett Phillips in airplane mode. Remember that one? I don't know if you do or not, but that was maybe a handful of years ago after his unexpectedly clutch walk-off in Game 4 of the 2020 World Series. And then he smiled. Look, the second part of the equation in line with Phillips and the moment mentioned above are the heroics. These players are typically notorious for a handful of moments when their bat or glove or whatever came in as a clutch event in a very, very high pressure situation. And look, they're able to ride the goodwill of those events. And hey, listen, all it takes is one guy to do one thing. And think about this. Think of the 2005 World Series, and you had a guy hit a home run. Actually, two guys hit home runs that you would have never thought would hit home runs. And one of them, actually, they're both game winners. One was Scott Posednik. He hits a home run in extra innings to win the game. And Jeff Blum, another guy, hits a home run, and that was in Houston. I think that was game 3 of the World Series in 2005, where my beloved White Sox swept the Houston Astros. And boy, what a starting rotation they had with Roger Clemens and Andy Pettitte and Roy Oswalt and Brandon Backey. Imagine beating all 4 of those pitchers. Got to tell you, folks, that is a mighty, mighty task. And that fell under the same light as the Cincinnati Redlegs back in 1990 when they played the big bad Oakland A's with the Bash Brothers and all those guys and Dave Stewart in the starting rotation. Ironically, Dave Stewart had played previously for the Cincinnati Reds at that time. But my point is, we like the overachievers, right? Underpromise, overdeliver. I think that's what a lot of Americans dig. And frankly, it's not just Americans. I think people around the globe dig that kind of thing. I'm one of those guys. And look, I was told, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. And guess what? Here I am a decade later on air. Back here in a few minutes on the Sports Circus. Lots more to come. Don't go anywhere.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average and best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UppercutChops.com or call 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Or make your selection directly at UppercutChops.com. Swirling like a top with a grin and a roar, he commands the floor.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMTV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's the College of Southern Nevada Athletics, csncoyotes.com. Check them out, folks. They've been with us since the very, very beginning. All right. A big welcome back to everybody listening in on our CBS NBC Fox Sports affiliate from Independence, including our friends listening in on radio over in Atlanta, Greater Atlanta, WDJY 99.1 FM. Thanks for waking up with us Monday through Friday and listening in right down the road, Montgomery, Alabama, all the way to Columbus, Georgia, and all points in between with that antenna right there in Auburn, Alabama. War Eagle, our friends at WAUD, that's home of the Atlanta Braves. Thanks for tuning in at 7 p.m. Monday through Friday up and down the Midwest. Out to our friends driving along Interstate 15 between sunny Southern California and right here in Las Vegas, 94.9 FM and 96.9 FM, KNAC, Pure Rock. Thanks for joining us there. And the legendary KNAC, by the way, folks. If you don't know, you better check them out. All right, also up and down the Midwest. I've already said that one. Up and down the West Coast, all the way up to our friends in Anchorage, Alaska, down to Honolulu, CBS Sports 1500, KHKA, that's home of the 49ers, Yankees, and Alabama Crimson Tide, plus everybody else watching on, pick your favorite television provider. That would be Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, Wild, Charter, CBS, NBC Digital, and independent affiliates in select markets, Hotel TV, Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook, and plus everybody else. Of course, I could do that one for another, I don't know, at least 30 seconds or so, if you know what I mean. But then again, we're not going to bore you to tears with that. But then again, maybe we will at the beginning of the next segment. All right, back to this. Who's the favorite player? Why do you root for the favorite player? It's not really the best player, but I think it's more the feel-good story. That's kind of where I left off with this. I mean, look, think about the fact that we're rooting for kind of the average guy, the regular guy or woman. And it's not a simple feat to combine likability and heroics into a single metric that would really help us identify certain players, right? It's easy to root for guys like Tom Brady or Michael Jordan or in bowling, Earl Anthony, but way back in the day. It's easy to root for the superstars. But what about the overachievers that they do the impossible? And I left off with that with a couple of home run hitters that weren't home run hitters in Scott Pasednik and Jeff Blum with the 2005 World Champion Chicago White Sox. I mean, look, these are the unlikely heroes, and people get attached to, they say, well, they captured our imagination, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. All I know is they did the unthinkable, and I love that when people do that because, folks, it is, first of all, hard enough to get there, but to actually achieve at the highest level of the game deserves an astounding round of applause. And we're going to let that one play out. That's right. 14 seconds of it. Just because we can. But think about that, folks. It is awfully hard to be that hero. I mean, how many people want to be that hero? They want their 15 seconds of fame. And people say, well, there's 15 minutes of fame. No, it's not. It's 15 seconds of fame. And ultimately, if you have the spotlight, if you're lucky enough to get the spotlight in the first place, enjoy the spotlight. It doesn't happen to everybody. It doesn't happen at a planned moment in time. It just kind of happens. And I mean, the whole thing here with the circus just kind of happened. I wasn't looking for this to happen. It just kind of happened. So I said, all right, well, I'll drink that Kool-Aid and we'll see where it goes. And over a decade later, whatever, I'm still on the air. It's maddening to imagine that it actually happened that way, but it does happen that way. And if you think it doesn't happen that way, well, you know what? You're not dreaming big enough, folks. All you got to do is have a little bit of belief. And you think these heroes and these games, do you think that they actually had some kind of, some kind of lead into a situation? No, in many cases, they just happened to step into a situation. All the stars aligned. God says, it's your turn. Go make it your turn. Go enjoy it. Capture the moment. And really, if you capture the moment, that is really all you can ask for. Seriously, that is truly all you can ask for. Listen, remember this song? How many people love this song? I love this song because it reminds me of great things. But when we think of the great things, we think of all the things that are achieved maybe during a moment, and maybe that was the song that you heard at that particular time. So you'll never forget a particular song that was playing at a particular moment. And that's why you think about all those people that end up getting Alzheimer's and all those things, all those horrible diseases. Well, what happens in many cases from a memory standpoint, like we remember these great heroes that performed well on the field, on the court, on the ice, whatever the heck it is, right? Well, we remember the things that were very special in our worlds. And so those players, maybe they captured a moment when they say, well, you captured our imagination, whatever. They captured a moment in time. And we reflect back, and the people that are older and they've fallen ill to this disease or that disease, and we'll just use the Alzheimer's thing because it seems to be like a memory thing. But it seems like, and the doctors have said, of course, not this unofficial, but I've heard doctors say that when people have these health issues, the one thing that they remember the great things in their lives. And the one thing that always sticks with me is I remember when my grandmother, she had the same problem. Well, she remembered the great things in her life, and it was the people in her life that made a difference, not because they did something for her, but they just brought joy to her heart. Well, these players did the same thing. I was one of those people in my grandmother's heart. Thank God for that. But I think of these players that are the fan favorites, and they're not because they're the superstars. It's just people are rooting for the underdog. They love the underdog. And so why am I going on about this? Because I can in the first place, and that's how that one works. Think about that, folks. So at the end of the period, or at the end of the game, you say, well, hey, that guy made the great shot. Yes, he made the great shot. Think of John Paxson making the final shot in the NBA Finals in a game to win 99-98 in a very, very wild and unpredictable game back in the early 90s. It wasn't Michael Jordan. It was John Paxson. That's right. Paxson made the shot. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up on your favorite search engine that rhymes with noodle, and you'll find out what the hell I'm talking about. But ultimately, folks, these players, the standout one-offs, wow, what a great moment they had. And the average person can really identify with that. And that's what I dig about this discussion. So look, you may be statistically bad. You may not have this enormous fan base, but who gives a damn? Think about what was achieved in that flash moment in time. People just never forget stuff like that. What's interesting is a lot of wives, they complain to their husbands, well, you can't remember to throw out the garbage, but you remember stats from 50 years ago or some garbage like that. I got to tell you, folks, there happens to be quite a bit of truth in that. You know why? Because we remember the things that impacted us that we'll never forget. Yeah, we may forget to throw the garbage out or do this, that, or the other, but you sure as hell can you could bet your ass that we're going to remember statistics on something from 20, 30, 40 years ago. Why? Because it means something to us. And think about the average person at work, day in and day out, right? They're just basically worker bees, and you've got the boss, crack of the whip, whoosh, right? Get to work, that kind of thing. So what do they have to live for? Are they get a paycheck at the end of the week or every other week or whatever? By the way, folks, if you get paid every other week, I think, in my opinion, you should consider insisting that you get paid once a week. Think about this. If that's the case, there are 52 pay periods in a year. If you're being paid every other week, or better, well, even once a month or twice a month, let's say they pay you twice a month. Well, you know what happens there? Somehow, you end up with 2 paychecks a month or 24 paychecks, yet somehow you're missing a couple of paychecks. Think about that. Because 24, if you're being paid twice a month, well, that doesn't equal 26 weeks or 26 pay periods or 52 weeks. So it seems to me that somebody's missing the boat on that one, because the reality is, if you're being paid weekly, there's 52 pay periods. If you're paid every other week, then you're paid technically 26 pay periods. But if you're paid twice a month, magically, 2 of the pay periods are gone. Yeah, and think about this. If you add up, if you take 4 weeks, 4 weeks, 4 weeks, that's 28 days, the reality is there was really supposed to be 13 months on the original calendar, not 12. That's why we had 4 weeks of 7 days. But somebody in their lack of infinite wisdom decided, we're going to go ahead and we're going to change it to, don't even ask me why I got here. But the point is, we're going to change it to 12 months, and we're going to have weird days, weird amounts of days and stuff like that. I don't know. The whole thing is goofy. But anyway, don't even ask me where I'm going with it. It's the end of the segment. We're going to be back here in a few minutes. Right here on the Sports Circus. Lots more to come. Hey, listen, it's a circus, and I prove it every day. Don't go anywhere, folks. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMTV studio, AAMP television. Folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com's upcoming schedule. Guess what? Lots of great guests. Our prior guests, check out those shows. Of course, you can hear all the previous shows, thousands of them, on Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, iHeart, Stitcher, Deezer, Libsyn, plus a whole bunch of others. Also, check out the partners page. Lots of great partners. One of our favorites, musically speaking, is legendary rock band Blue Oyster Cult. And you heard at the top of the show, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult. You're listening to the Sports Circus. Buck is a great guy. They have incredible music. They've been doing it for decades. Multi-platinum, over and over. I gotta tell you, folks, no fix it in the mix, no auto-tune, no backing tracks, no nothing. They get out there, they play, they tour, and it's just good music. Good melody, good guitar, good drumming, good everything. I'm not saying that because I get anything from it. No, I'm just saying those guys are good and they've been doing it for decades and they're still doing it. Click on the link right there, just on the logo at thesportscircus.com's partners page. You'll see the Blue Oyster Cult logo there. Click on it. It'll take you to the tour page. Pick up some tickets to an upcoming show. Also check out the merch. Lots of great hats and t-shirts and whatnot over there. Again, that's Blue Oyster Cult. Go to blueoystercult.com or find them right there at the Sports Circus partner page. And of course, make sure you click on it and have some fun. And believe me, when you go to their shows, they rock. Back to you here once in a while on KAC Pure 94.9 FM and 96.9 FM on that drive through the Mountain Desert between sunny Southern California and right here in Las Vegas. All right, so Mr. Kelly was the subject of our last segment, right? So we had a fun conversation about Don Kelly. He's not the real Donnie Baseball, but in Detroit he is. Another guy in Detroit is an interesting thing. You take the guy, remember Brandon Inge? Brandon was a solid, everyday third baseman until Miguel Cabrera showed up. And look, I mean, he was technically relegated to a utility role after, well, Miguel Cabrera shows up, and I mean, obviously we're talking Hall of Famer now, but Inge, who posted a career slash line of 233, 301, 384 with an 81 WRC plus and a 14.5 WAR. It's pretty damn good. Was a better player than Kelly, who we talked about before statistically, but still below average by most accounts. Now, way back in 2009, largely because of a hot run of 24 consecutive games during which he reached base, he went to his first and only All-Star game thanks to the fan vote. So the fans got behind it. The fans got involved, and I love that. And part of what really endeared Inge to fans was his willingness to convert to a utility role after losing place as an everyday player. Yeah, of course it bothered him. And frankly, it's like being in the starting rotation or being the closer and losing your closer job. Now, I was never the closer for a team on a regular basis, but I certainly was a number one or a number two in the starting rotation. And if I was to ever get knocked down and knocked out of it, I mean, it was tragic. So you got to realize that's a big deal to say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play a role for the team. And it's not going to be about me. We're just going to go ahead and do exactly what we're supposed to do. So when Cabrera joined the Tigers, he actually asked the Tigers to trade him, but they weren't able to. So much like Kelly and the Tigers, a player's postseason performance can be a huge part of what makes them special to fans. And think about those blasted Cubs from 2016, won the World Series. They really didn't win. It was the Indians that lost the World Series. They had a 3-1 lead, and they just couldn't put the stupid Cubs away. It is what it is. So, I mean, look, it's easy to forget some of the individual players and performances, but backup catchers, I mean, David Ross was one of those guys. He ended up being a manager too, and David Ross turned out to be a really good manager, even though he was only hitting, 203, and the guy really was terrible at the plate, but he was a fan favorite, and that was just one of those things. And so, look, he hit his first postseason home run. I think it was back with the Atlanta Braves back in 2012 as a wild card game, if I'm not mistaken. And during his second stint with the Red Sox, he had a game-winning RBI. So here's this Mr. Clutch kind of thing in World Series play and whatnot. Not really. And of course, in Game 7, he became the oldest player to hit a home run, all that fun stuff. But again, he was a fan favorite. What about Augie Ojeda, another guy from the Cubs. Now I remember that because, I was born and raised in Chicago. Of course, I'm going to remember a lot of things that happened with our baseball teams there. Look, the guy came up in time, and again, in response to a prompt, see what happens. Look, in 9 seasons, he only hit 234. That's right, with a 1.9 WAR. But Augie Ojeda, a utility infielder who won an Olympic bronze medal at the 96 Summer Games, never found the same success at the big league level that he did in the minors. But he was signed by the Cubs on 3 different occasions. Imagine that. And so his original stint came way back in 2000. After being traded from the Orioles, he returned in 2006, though he only appeared in the minor leagues for a third time in 2011, where he again was relegated to a minor league position, right, DFA'd. And before being released, it's like, all right, well, what's he going to do now? So think about this. He's kind of a small guy. He was up that, I don't know, 5 foot nothing, 100 nothing pounds, that kind of thing. Kind of player who usually spends most of their career trying to prove themselves that they just aren't too small to be in the bigs, right? It's not like there's a guy by the name of Freddie Patek who played for the Kansas City Royals. He was a really small guy. In fact, he was so small that he was supposed to be the small man in Major League Baseball until, well, Bill Veeck went out and got himself for the Chicago White Sox a guy by the name of Harry Chappis. And Harry Chappis, I think, was the smallest player ever to play in big league history. Then again, that's the White Sox and Royals rivalry. But back in 2020, recalling his experience with the team, he said that Cubs fans are really supportive and they do their homework on minor leagues, which they do. I'll give them that. And they didn't really know much about him at the time, but they saw his size and they said, well, he's kind of a long shot for him to make it. And he had a double in his first game, got a standing ovation and all that other fun stuff because he was just the little guy. Just the little guy. So the Blue Jays had a guy like that, Kawasaki. What was his name? Munenori, I think it was. Let's call him Kawasaki, right? So he was one of those journeymen, and the fans loved him. He only hit 237, but he found a permanent place for himself in the heart of the Jays fans, and we kind of like that. But look, he was only in the bigs for a handful of seasons, but he made a big impact on the team during a really important stretch of the team's wins back in the 2010s. So, yeah, he was one of those role players that people said, hey, let's get Cowie up to the plate for Kawasaki. And look, he made some clutch hits. And even back in 2013, he had one of those walk-offs against the Orioles. And that's one of those things that stick around with people, that they don't want to forget that stuff. And let's face it, when they finished, being the Jays, they finished last in the American League East. That was what, 2015, I think it was. They made a trip to the postseason afterwards, but getting all the way to the ALCS before losing to the Royals, and it was Kawasaki, only appearing in 23 games in 2015 and did not make a postseason appearance, but his effect on the club across 3 seasons lingers even today. He's one of those guys, and he continues to be an engaging personality. And his post-game interviews, that's right, he's on the TV and radio, he's on the broadcast, they're frequently delightful to watch, is what a lot of people tend to say. He's one of those guys. I mean, look, as I take a look back at these alleged bad players, they just find ways to become fan favorites. And I kind of dig that. I mean, who doesn't like that? I guess the front runners, they always like those kinds of players. And it's real easy to root for the winner. And remember, folks, there are different kind of players out there, right? There are the stat leaders, there are the clutch players, and they're the Hall of Fame fan favorites, that kind of thing. But how do you really compare them is the big question. I mean, the stat leaders, what do they focus on? Volume, basically it. And of course, you just measure them by wins and titles and points and crap like that, or a lack thereof. But the clutch players are probably more important than the stat leaders because those are the late game impact guys, the high leverage situations, they like to say these days, right? The guy that'll take the last shot, the Michael Jordans they want the ball to take the last shot, or Steph Curry and those kinds of people. I mean, in baseball, who do you want up there? You want Freddie Freeman up there in baseball. Freddie knows how to deliver in the crunch. And so then you have the fan favorites, right? These are the energy guys and women, right? And they you can basically measure their success by a handful of highlight reels, but boy, they are fun to watch. And when we think of basketball, for example, we'll think of Vince Carter, right? Is a big highlight reel, like Dominique Wilkins, the human highlight reel. Those are the guys that are fun to watch. It's not like they've won a lot, but boy, they are fun to watch. And hey, let's face it, we all have our favorites, whether they're winning teams or not. This is part of the fun of watching sports, and you don't always have to watch championship sports to have fun with it. We're going to be back here in just a few minutes on the circus. Lots more to come. Listen to this track here by Joey That Guy. It is the Sports Circus Anthem.
Step right up! The show is about to start! With a heart of fire and a restless heart!
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP television. Folks, make sure you check out the store at thesportscircus.com. Lots of great items, hats, hoodies, t-shirts, ball caps, beanie hats, travel mugs, coffee mugs, sweatpants, sweatcoats, mouse pads, pillows, all kinds of items with the clever Sports Circus logo on them. That is the store at thesportscircus.com. You'll see the toolbar right across the top. It says store, click on it. Mention Ringmaster Sal for an extra 10% off your first order. All right. All right, welcome back to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates and independents from coast to coast. Everybody watching on TV, you know who you are. Everybody streaming, you know who you are. And, of course, everybody on Chicago Food Favorites, thanks for joining us there on Facebook. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Make sure to check that out, folks. So talking about fan favorites and clutch players and stat leaders and all this other fun stuff, I mean, think about this. We all like certain players for certain things. Everybody's different. That's what makes us unique. But it's real easy to like the favorite. But let's face it, there are certain players, men, women, children, whomever, whatever, people that have influenced us in our lives to one degree or another. And we're sticking with sports. We're not going to talk about anything else. We're going to talk about this leader or that kind of leader. We're going to talk about sports here. So obviously the Hall of Fame players, I mean, look, they're the fan favorites, of course, and players loved for their personality, hustle, style, I mean, they did it. They're stat leaders. They are clutch players. They are all of that stuff. So, I mean, stat leaders aren't always the best role models, though, as we have certainly seen. But look, those players, what do? They produce. They produce steadily over time. And it matters because the numbers are easy to measure and it's easy to say, all right, well, look, Kareem holds the all-time scoring record. Well, he used to, nonetheless, until somebody played a whole bunch more years and said, well, we're going to go ahead and make that record mine. So that made him an automatic Hall of Famer, right? But he also won a whole bunch of times in the league. Now, the clutch players, I think a lot of people like this. These are the ones with the ice in the veins, right? They make the right plays or shots when the game is on the line. These are the Jordans, the Currys, the Freddie Freemans, let's go to another sport. In football, we'll say, well, you got to say Joe Montana. Joe Montana did it. He was that guy. Tom Brady, he did it, right? In hockey, well, I'm not going to say Gretzky. I'm going to say there are other players, but Gretzky was awfully good. So hockey has its players too. But I guess in the grand scheme of things, look, if you're delivering at the right time when it matters, when the game is on the line, right? These are the people that really respond well to pressure. That's really what you're talking. There's a guy by the name of Robert Horry. Everybody called him Big Shot Bob. And Big Shot Bob hitting championship winning shots. The guy has like 6 rings. And Big Shot Bob has them for a very good reason. He's just one of those guys. Give Robert Horry the shot because he's going to make the shot. You may remember him from the Houston Rockets and other squads as well. But look, it's easy to say those clutch players, the other Hall of Famers, not all of them are. Sometimes they're just the guys that rise up at a particular time. You know, the Detroit Pistons used to have a guy by the name of Vinnie Johnson. And Vinnie Johnson, they call him the microwave because at the right time, the guy would just heat up and he would just get into that zone and just knock everything down. He was that guy. So he's not a Hall of Famer, but a serious clutch player when you think of those kind of players. But, you know, what's interesting is when the teams are rebuilding, when teams are in their down years, they're rebuilding, they're always trying to maybe replace. Look what the Bulls tried to do when they tried to replace Michael Jordan. First of all, you can't replace Michael Jordan, right? And you say, all right, well, let's go out and try to find some good players. Well, the Bulls have been in a serious drought ever since, well, they had Derrick Rose, but Derrick Rose couldn't keep himself healthy. He made moves, incredible moves, that the human body just wasn't designed to make. And Derrick Rose was a great player, MVP player. But the Bulls never did what they did with that group with Michael Jordan because those guys were the clutch shooters. Jordan made everybody around him great. Even the average player turned into a good player around him. And so you ask, well, how do you find those players? Look, in sports scouting and whatnot, I mean, it's hard. That's the proverbial needle in a haystack. It truly is. So, yeah, you got to evaluate the raw talent. But the fit on the team's scheme is arguably more important, because you may pick in a draft, you may pick the best athlete on the board, but you may pick the best athlete, but the worst fit for the team. And that doesn't translate to winning championships, right? That best pick, maybe the highest talent, top skill overall, guarantees elite raw ability. Well, the best system fit is how well they actually align with the coach's philosophies and their tactics. And that, I believe, is far more important than getting the best athlete. And I think a lot of teams that go for the best athlete are taking them because they know they may not be the right fit, but they'll go ahead and trade them to a team that maybe wants that kind of fit. So a lot of times they're trade bait. So you got to think about that. And you go back to what was the 1984 NBA draft when Sam Bowie was picked before Michael Jordan. Imagine that. How do you not pick Michael Jordan? Well, it's easy to say that, of course, after everything. Michael Jordan already was fresh off of winning an NCAA title over in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And so how do you not take a winning superstar player into the NBA to be a winning superstar player there too? Well, that's what the Chicago Bulls did. And they finally found a few years later, they picked up Scottie Pippen. That's right. In fact, they made a trade to get Scottie Pippen because actually Pippen was the Seattle Supersonics player. And ironically, it was Pippen that ended up playing against his old squad that drafted him, the Supersonics, in the first place. And that was just a handful of years later. I mean, it's weird, but it's system. And by the way, it was Doug Collins that built that winning Chicago Bulls team. It wasn't Phil Jackson. Doug Collins built that team from the ground up. Jerry Krause, as the general manager, did a great job. And we're going to give this one's to Jerry because nobody ever gives him a round of applause. So that goes out to Jerry Krause. And let's face it, Doug Collins, that goes out to him too for putting that team and managing those players, putting that all together. And look, it was hard for the Bulls to get past Bill Laimbeer and Isaiah Thomas and that really good bad boys team from the Detroit Pistons. But when they got over the hump, they never looked back. And so the Bulls still have tried to figure it out. Even after Derrick Rose, they just can't figure it out. So best pick is one thing, statistically. But best fit is everything. I believe the Bulls had the right coach in Scott Skiles, but they let him go for whatever reason. Then same thing with Thibodeau. They let him go as well. I just don't understand it. I think it's fan pressure, season ticket holder pressure, or whatnot. But listen, the best player available isn't always the best thing. We think of best system. Look, choosing a player whose specific skills match your team's tactical philosophy is everything. It's real simple because there's a smooth transition into the lineup, instant chemistry, and a definite role. That's the most important part. And unfortunately, sometimes you may have to pass up those higher talented players, but those players may not be the best fit. And many times coaches get fired or player personnel people because the team changes the scheme and the player may instantly become useless when I'm saying taking that high pick. So, I mean, look, think about the Golden State Warriors prioritizing elite three-point shooters over taller, lesser skilled players to run their fast-paced ball movement offense. That's probably a really good way to look at it. But the most successful teams, the most successful front offices, like those managing Major League Baseball, they use a blended approach, and you have to at some point because the analytics do come into play a little bit. Of course, they look for the high baseline talent, but of course, weigh in on how are the players, essentially their brain is going to mesh with the management style up and down the minor league system all the way up to the big leagues. And that's a real important fit. So look, analyze the best pick versus the best fit in your favorite sport. If you're interested, you can go ahead and look a little bit more into it. And think about that movie Moneyball and the data analytics. Look, that's only one piece of the puzzle in the grand scheme of things. Analytics can certainly help, but they can certainly hurt as well. How many times have we seen a pitcher throw or is on our way to a no-hitter, and maybe the pitcher is maybe 7 innings into it, and then the manager does the unthinkable and they take the pitcher out. Oh, yeah. And the chorus of boos. It's just unbelievable what happens. I can't believe they would do that. I never understand why they would do it. Oh, that's right. It's all about... Show me the money! It's all about the money. That's it. If you realize that certain players need to be kept around a little bit longer because the payroll is a little bit higher and they have to play, well, this is the peril of signing the expensive player. Even if they stink, you have to play them because the owner wants to feel like they're getting value for the salary. Think about that. Mike Trout, I think he makes, $80,000 per at bat or some crazy number like that. I don't know, $430 million contract or something. I think it translates out to 80,000 in at bat, some crazy number. But the reality is, the Angels had to play him no matter what. You got to play him. You got to get value. And if you don't get your value, then the owner bellyaches. And then what happens? Well, once the owner starts bellyaching, they start looking for people to fire. And Artie Moreno, in my opinion, is the worst owner in Major League Baseball. Firing a general manager because he makes the general manager dumpster dive looking for talent in the first place. It says, oh, I got money, but I'm not going to give it to you to go spend. No, you're going to go ahead and you're going to go find players. You're going to find that needle in a haystack on a regular basis, or you're going to be out of a job. And our thoughts go out with Perry Manassian, who was one hell of a general manager. And frankly, Artie Moreno, in my opinion, absolutely, unequivocally did him dirty. And I mean did him dirty. It's disgusting. That's why I don't understand how that stuff happens. Oh, that's right. Because Artie's not very good, in my opinion, at handling his business in the first place. So he has to use his baseball team, apparently, as his punching bag and doormat for all of his other business woes and crap like that. So Artie Moreno, I think you stink. This is my opinion. I'm entitled to it. And you wonder why your season ticket holder base is so wonky in the first place. That's right. Take a look in the mirror, buddy. Take a look at your finances, your decision making, and you'll see why your baseball team is mediocre at best. And oh, by the way, they're perennial cellar dwellers. We'll see you in 23 hours right here on the Sports Circus. Don't go anywhere for the next 23 hours. Just wait for the show. We'll be back in 23 right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone. Count your money, buddy.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.